Welcome back, chess friends. We have a game today that I'm almost certain you have not seen, which is really part of the enjoyment of this channel. Games that you really haven't seen, hopefully at a high level, usually chess history, but this one in the Dragon. And if you know anything about the Dragon Sicilian, it's really known as one of the sharpest openings. Now, you don't see it at the highest Grandmaster levels, but it is quite a frequent sight, I would say, anywhere below 2200, a lot. Here we go. When you play g6, this officially becomes the dragon. For example, a6, the knight orf. You can play knight c6, maybe a couple of other moves here. g6, the dragon, very aggressive. Most players play here bishop e3, bishop g7, f3. An interesting move. Again, some of you may already know this, so stick with me. The typical plan for white, queen d2 and castle. White f3 prevents knight g4, which is a really annoying move. Knight g4, taking this bishop. And after we castle, we can actually start the pawn storm. f3, a very important, useful move. Knight c6, queen d2, like we said. And white could castle here, but chooses bishop c4. A very natural move. Castling, of course, very, very natural, and does come here, but not when you expect it. Let's mention a moment. This game is from the U.S. Championship. 1973. It was a big year for chess in America at that time. Of course, 72 was when Fischer became the world chess champion. So this was really the very next year at the U.S. Championship, which, of course, Fischer was not participating in anymore. But these two players were quite strong. James Tarjan, Grandmaster, picked up playing at a bit of an older age lately. I'd have to look at exactly what's going on now. And John Greff, or Grief, I hope I'm saying it right, but an interesting character I read a little bit about. He, in this tournament, tied for first in the U.S. Championship. Very rare for an IM to do it, but was obviously a very exciting and tactical player. Here we go. Typical move here would be to castle queenside, rook c8, etc. h4. Definitely in the spirit of the position. Again, white is trying to push the pawns, break up the king's castle here. But it's usually done after we ourselves castle queenside. Remember, kings on opposite sides of the board are some of the most exciting chess games. Rook c8, very natural move, threatening the bishop. Bishop b3, the typical response. Knight e5. Again, all these moves actually are kind of known when you play this opening. Still today, I would say these are very natural moves, except white is castled. That's the key difference. Instead, he's going for h4 and now h5, all at once. And this game just explodes right here. Knight takes, that h-file was opening one way or another. Either white is taking and the h-file opens, your rook becomes a great piece, or like this, knight takes and g4. Now, the next move really throws the game into the blender. This is all based on the fact that if the knight could take this pawn, okay, if the black knight could take this knight would have to move first, right? This knight's gone, then knight takes here would hit the king and queen, game over. If that could happen. Of course, this knight is still protecting. What does he do? Rook c4. Rook c4. Gets a question mark, but a very creative move here. And again, leaving this knight hanging. White takes the knight. Interesting, if you take the rook, here it would go knight takes, hits the queen and bishop. Not comfortable here, and the only move to keep the balance on queen e2, but the engine still saying white is a bit better, but interesting, I would say. But capturing the knight on h5 is the best move. Rook takes d4. Wow. Can we just appreciate the creativity here? All of this, again, is based on knight takes here, check, and queen. That's the point. Very interesting lesson. Often strong players will have kind of an idea they want to make work or accomplish, and they're kind of navigating, how do you find this move and that move to make this one thing work? So queen g2, that escapes the constant danger that was this king-queen fork, and queen b6, leaving the rook hanging. What a game, folks. I told you this one was just thrown into the blender, into the tornado, but the next move is brilliant. Rook takes e4. How can you think of this move? Pinning the bishop, which looks like the queen is just hanging, but it's not. Bishop takes queen against the law of chess because it is pinned. Now he plays of course, the rook is hanging, the bishop is hanging, there's pins here, and this pawn is here, and the queen staring at the king, and the rook down there, and we still are king in the center white. Check. What a mess. Here, king h8, an obvious move, I would say, and castles long. Move 18, castling out of this tornado. Queen takes e3. That is check. King b1, the only sensible move. Rook c4, again, tempting. Black, I must say, is playing with real wizardry in this game. It's just unbelievable. Rook d to g1, that's threatening checkmate. No small threat there. Rook takes f7, bishop takes c4, and queen g6. White has had enough. White has had enough and says, you know what, after this whole explosion of tactics, I am threatening checkmate. You cannot just push the pawn. Let's say queen takes rook is winning a rook. And that is almost the end of the game. Actually, black finds a brilliant save. Really had his tactical glasses on in this game. One way to save the day for black. One move only, and that is knight a3. Black bails out with a perpetual check. The game ended here. B takes a3, queen b6 check. Notice you cannot go to the corner. Let's show that. Bishop takes is checkmate. One move before white checkmates black, black checkmates white. Let's rewind. If king c1, which is what happened in the game, of course, we didn't walk into checkmate. Queen e3, king b1, queen b6, and back and forth here and there and there and there. Draw. What a game. Let's point out one other variation, similar. If white realizes, oh, I don't want to draw, okay, tries to move the king instead of taking the knight like in the game. Knight takes c2. The only move is king b1. And the same thing occurs. Knight a3. If you capture, actually this time it is losing to bishop f5. Notice the difference, that c-pawn was captured. And here, knight a3, king a1, knight c2 would again be a draw. So really interesting one and quite a game. Some of those moves were just mind-boggling. And yeah, that one really struck me as amazing. Okay, now this next game was a game that I actually played. Rook e7. We are losing pretty bad. This was a 1-minute game. Forgive me, but I thought that was a really cool concept. 1-minute game here, folks. I am playing with the white pieces. Bishop d4. Rook's on the 7th. We're just scrambling again, fast as we can. Rook takes g7. We know this pattern. King f8. And here I just lost control. Rook h7 went on to lose. Okay, we'll spare you the details. Just seconds left. But upon analysis, I found that white actually has an incredible move here that saves the game. And actually, the computer is not finding it here. The chess.com engine has this at minus 1.2. Not finding it, honestly. Pretty incredible. That's the move I played. No good. But the move is bishop e4. The point. If you take this, then we have this perpetual check. Okay? Very easy to understand. So, in other words, this bishop must guard the f7 square. If you ever let go of this square, it's a draw. So what do? The bishop is about to get taken as well. Bishop a2, run away. Bishop e1, brilliant. Bishop b3, bishop c2, brilliant. Bishop c4, bishop d3, best. I don't know why that one's not brilliant too. But you get the idea here. We just chase the bishop. I have never seen a perpetual attack. Like, it's not perpetual check, not yet. We're perpetually threatening to perpetual check. Really an incredible game there. Interesting that the engine of chess.com gives some of them brilliance and some of them exclamation points. But wow, that was a cool one. I had never seen this concept before. And finally, let's get to the real legend. That is black pieces here, Anatoly Karpov. A quick game here. I had Karpov listed at 15 years old, 1966. We are way back in time. But this was an interesting game. Zaitsev, I'm not sure how old he was at the time of this game, but also becomes a Grandmaster. Okay, a little bit of fancy trading here. Black takes a pawn here, threaten the knight, and then white takes a pawn back, a trade. But this game goes off the rails right here. Knight takes f7. Really interesting. It looks like just a known draw. King takes f7 would be a draw. This did not happen in the game. I'll show the draw. Queen h5 and queen e2. Interestingly enough, the engine I have here is giving draw king f7. Seems very, very here, something like this would run into f3. And some interesting variations. Okay, let's point out one variation here. If you play king g8, trying to get safe, trying to checkmate. Eek. So there is some danger, of course. Knight takes f7 is extreme danger. The real game, Karpov played queen e7. Not sure why it gets the interesting symbol. A knight takes the rook in the corner. Knight c3. Notice the queen pointing at the king. Knight c3 is discovered. Check. Hitting the queen. It's like that reverse Petroff trap. This is the Petroff, and black accomplished that trap on white. Never saw that before. King d2. Thank you for the queen, but not so fast. Rook e1 pins the queen to the king, and actually white is winning the queen back. Remember, white took a rook in the corner. Knight takes f2. Bishop takes h7. What in the world? Who wouldn't just take the queen here? But bishop h7, engine giving best move. Here is how the game ended. Knight e4 and rook takes e4. Bailing out. This is a bailout, folks, and sometimes you need to just cut your losses. A fantastic game despite a draw. That just happens in chess. Don't. Sometimes that's the maximum you can get. So here, double check. Without giving, here you cannot give your queen the only move, but here, without giving your queen, there's nothing else that can be played. Giving the queen would favor white. So black said, let's just make a draw. Fantastic game. Want to point out one other moment here. Remember, knight e4, rook e4, and then the draw. Actually, the engine that I have here is suggesting knight e5. Maybe an older, more mature Karpov would have found this fantastic resource. Rook takes, and then bishop blocking. This gives the king a little bit of breathing room. This engine giving an incredible line here. Check this out. Bishop g6, that's check. King d7. Bishop f7, attack pin pieces that knight saying hello from the corner. I'm still helping. Knight e4 check, king e1. Queen h4, that's another check. G3. Okay, we're getting absolutely into the realm of ridiculous. Nobody would see or play any of these moves, but, well, they would play them, I would imagine, if they got this far. But really a cool variation. Giving black is slightly better, but how would you be feeling? Only move to keep the edge here, c6. Just incredible, interesting variation. With the queen down, we have a rook in two minor pieces, plus the uncoordinated pieces of white, so it's really unbalanced. Wow, okay. Went down a bit of a rabbit hole there, but again, the game really went knight e4 and perpetual check. Some very cool perpetual checks today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, sometimes maybe another good lesson just to take with you is remember what you're playing for. Sometimes that draw is the best you can do. You should take it. That's good chess. Sometimes you're the stronger side of the draw or the winning side. You don't want to. You need to be watching out for moves like this. Rook takes e4. Just bailing out. This one was unbelievable. But toward the end of our first game here, knight a3, that's a very seeable move, right? This is not one that's incredible to find. It's a very nice one, but again, what I mean is if you are white, looking for these proactively. So great, great, great. I really enjoyed this one, and I appreciate you all